Hello and welcome to Lovecraft in the Bath with me, VEELA. Today I'm going to be reading a story by H.P. Lovecraft called Nyarlathotep. It's one of the more famous stories because it's the first time that we hear of the god Nyarlathotep from the Cthulhu mythos, and this is a very famous mythos surrounding Lovecraft's writing about the elder gods, the big gods who control everything that we can even imagine and more, creating the genre of cosmic horror that he was so famous for. I'm reading the story out of this Little Penguin Classics compilation by S.T. Joshi. If you want to quickly read it, it's a very short story. Please go read it in the description below. I've got links for a text version online that's free. I've also linked my narration as well as a description video about Nyarlathotep that I really enjoy, that's very comprehensive, by a different YouTuber. So you can go and kind of have as much information as you like. So the story begins with almost, I kind of read it as chanting. It goes, Nyarlathotep, da da da. The crawling chaos, da da da. I am the last, da da da. I will tell the audient void. This kind of foreshadows the whole story. Then we go into a description of the time where we're at, kind of the setting. It explains that there is a season of political and social upheaval, a strange and brooding apprehension of hideous physical danger, a danger widespread and all-embracing. So it was a very bad time and kind of an uncomfortable time for the narrator and the city which he lived. They explain that things aren't quite as they always have been, that there's something a little bit different. There was a demonic alteration in the sequence of the seasons. The autumn heat lingered fearsomely, and everyone felt that the world and perhaps the universe had passed from the control of known gods or forces to that of gods or forces which were unknown. So something is different, but the narrator can't quite put his finger on it, and neither can anybody else. Then we learn that Nyarlathotep has come out of Egypt. Who he was, none could tell, but he was of the old native blood and looked like a pharaoh. The Fellahin knelt when they saw him, yet could not say why. He said he had risen up out of the blackness from 27 centuries, and that he had heard messages from places not on this planet. So all of a sudden we get a character who's come up, who seems to be all-knowing, and we learn that he gains intense fame from being able to do magical things, wield electricity, and has advanced knowledge of science and psychology. Everybody was completely speechless. He was giving exhibitions about electricity and showing everybody his great power, and everybody was talking about it. They were saying, yes, go see him, he's wonderful. Men advised one another to see Nyarlathotep and shuddered, and where Nyarlathotep went, rest vanished. For the small hours were rent with the screams of nightmare. So as soon as he arrived to this town, to this land, everybody starts having terrible dreams and screaming in the night, and it became a big problem. Now, S.T. Joshi tells us that most of this story came to Lovecraft in a dream that he had. This is the birth of the character Nyarlathotep, who shows himself in a lot of other stories that he writes later on. Most people have a feeling as they read the story that he is talking about Nikola Tesla, who had very similar shows of his experiments with electricity at the same time. Lovecraft probably, people speculate, had a lot of influence from him for this character. And then the narrator tells us that Nyarlathotep is coming to his city. His friend had told him about all the shows that he had done before in the other lands, and that he was finally coming here. They had to go see him. And when they did, they saw all of the things that people were talking about. It was real. How could this possibly be true? And it's explained in this way. The sparks played amazingly around the heads of the spectators, and hair stood up on end, with shadows more grotesque than I can tell, came out and squatted on the heads. And when I, who is colder and more scientific than the rest, mumbled a trembling protest about imposture and static electricity, Nyarlathotep drave us all out, down the dizzy stairs into the damp, hot, deserted midnight streets. So when people told him that no, this can't possibly be true, we're happy with the world we live in, Nyarlathotep kept telling everybody that it was kind of the end days and that there are forces beyond their control. They said no, and he said, oh yes. Then there's this wonderful description of them leaving the show after Nyarlathotep got angry at them for doubting his abilities and doubting his prophecies, where all of a sudden they become possessed to go and drift away to a certain direction with no real reason. And they get a sense that the world around them starts crumbling. When we gazed around the horizon, we could not find the third tower by the river, and noticed that the silhouette of the second tower was ragged at the top. And then everybody started walking in columns, in a line, 3 different ones, and they started wandering off in different directions. His group started wandering off into a countryside, into a vast openness, and as they walked out, it starts snowing for no reason. It's early autumn, it shouldn't be snowing. They all got cold, and this is what scared him the most. Snow when there's not supposed to be snow! The narrator tried to resist the urge to go on, but it seemed like something was pulling him closer and closer to whatever the destination may have been. And then we see him disappear into this whole all-consuming vortex of confusion. I have floated between the titanic snowdrifts, quivering and afraid, into the sightless vortex of the unimaginable. And the last paragraph is a description of this God world that is undescribable, and there's these wonderful descriptions, these wonderful words that are used, and a lot of simile and things like this. Screamingly sentient, dumbly delirious, only the gods that were can tell. A sickened, sensitive shadow, writhing in hands that are not hands, and whirled blindly past ghastly midnights of rotting creation, corpses of dead worlds with swords that were cities, charnel winds that brush the pallid stars and make them flicker low. Beyond the worlds, vague ghosts of monstrous things. I've seen columns of unsanctified temples that rest on nameless rocks beneath the space and reach up to the dizzy vacua above, the spheres of light and darkness. So it's just one of these wonderful dream sequences that Lovecraft is so good at, of creating chaos but also these really stark, vivid things in your brain. And through the chaos, the narrator can hear drums in the background, dum, 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 and chanting and a flute, and as he looks around, he sees the detestable pounding and piping whereunto dance slowly, awkwardly, and absurdly the gigantic, tenebris ultimate guards, the blind, voiceless, mindless gargoyles whose soul is Nyarlathotep. This is a god who has taken human form, has come down to kind of fuck around with people and then just drive them insane, which is a common theme in Lovecraft's work, which is the thing that has sort of coined this idea of cosmic horror that he's so famous for. It makes us feel like we don't know anything and that we're teeny tiny in this universe. So how could we be sure of anything we do? There's a lot of other literature that's been done with this character Nyarlathotep in mind, who is not really a shapeshifter, but a god who can kind of do whatever he wants, and he sort of toys with people in a fun, playful manner, but has the ultimate goal of chaos. I love this story because I think it's a very fun introduction to the character Nyarlathotep, and it's very early on in the compilation, so that as I read other stories, I already know what I'm dealing with this character. So if it's just mentioned in passing, a lot of the time it's mentioned alongside the Necronomicon, and it just kind of gives a lot of life to the world that Lovecraft created within his stories. So I really hope you enjoyed the story as much as I did. Please feel free to discuss the story in the comments along with me. I love nerding out with people about Lovecraft stories. This is a really fun outlet for me. Stay out of trouble!